That must be super embarrassing.
Let me get that terrible driver I just got pulled over look.
This is perfect.
Whether you're a driver or a passenger, you're required by law to buckle up. Click it or ticket. Every trip, every time.
I describe myself as a mother, a writer, and a performer. I'm also a survivor of ovarian and uterine cancers. I even wrote a play about that. My symptoms were pain in my abdomen and periods that were heavier and longer than usual for me. If you have symptoms that last 2 weeks or longer, be brave. Go to the doctor.
Ovarian and uterine cancers are gynecologic cancers. Symptoms are not the same for everyone.
I got sick, and then I got better.
Hi, I'm Paula Marinoni, and you're watching Fayetteville Public Access Television.
Hi, I want to tell you about the time that my wife Tracy and I decided to put a vegetable garden in. We put about half our yard in as a vegetable garden in a couple years ago, and it was doing pretty well. We had all kinds of things I guess they call them vegetables. I don't know, because none of them ever reached fruition. Because our neighbor next door had this big thing, you spell it G-N-U, I guess it's pronounced new, but he called it the GNU. And this silly thing kept coming over and chewing on our vegetables, our cabbages, our cauliflowers, our peas on a regular basis, and they never grew. I mean, they never just. It was like vegetable abortions, because we were never able to find out what they tasted like on our plates, because this stupid animal from next door kept coming over and helping himself. So I kept going over, I kept knocking on the man's door. I said, "Listen, Mr. Green Jeans," I said, "you got to do something about this stupid animal of yours." I said, it's coming over and it's eating all of our vegetables." I said, "We can't have this." I said, "My wife and I are going to go hungry." I said, we're getting on in years." I said, "We're supposed to grow our own food." I said, "We read Utne magazine." I said, "We're supposed to just be one with nature." He said, "Oh, I'm really sorry about this." He said, I'm trying to get back to nature myself. I'm raising all these GNUs." That's how he pronounced it, GNU. He said, and Harvey, my eldest GNU, keeps getting out. He said, "Tell you what, if Harvey gets out again, just look him in the eyes and say, 'Harvey, go back home,' and he'll do it." I said, "All right." So Harvey the GNU came back to our garden. I looked him in the eyes and grabbed him by the collar. I said, "Harvey, get out of here." And Harvey went home. But he was back the next day, just chomping down on my favorite cauliflower, the one that was like, it was like as big as a man's head. I was ready to make soup out of that one. And I said to him, I said, "Man," I said, "Mr. Green Jeans, I'm tired of this creature coming over chawing on our vegetables." He said, "All right." He said, "Listen, if it comes over again," he said, "just throw some pebbles at it." I said, "All right." So the next morning I saw this GNU chomping on vegetables, so I picked up some small pebbles, because I don't want to throw rocks at this thing, because it's one of God's creatures after all. So I picked up some small pebbles and tossed the pebbles at the GNU, and it scattered like a wild stallion, ran next door. Did that the next day, but it looked at me like I was the biggest idiot on God's green earth. So I marched over and I started kicking on the man's door. I said, "Listen, I'm tired of this." I said, "You're going to do something about this GNU or it's going to the glue factory." He said, "All right." And he gave me this. He said, "Listen," he said, "if Harvey comes over there again," he said, "you need to give him a couple good whacks. Just paddle him on the butt." I said, "All right, by God." I said, "I'm ready for this, because I'm tired of this creature eating our produce." So the next day I was ready, and I walked outside, and there was this big animal just chomping down our vegetables. And I walked over to him, and I raised my big old stick, and I looked at those big, gentle, stupid brown eyes, and I couldn't do it. And I walked over to Mr. Green Jeans' house, and I gave him back a stick, and I said, "Listen," I said, "paddle your own GNU." Gather round and you'll hear a tale of a fateful trip that started from this tropic port aboard this tiny ship. The mate was a mighty sailing man, the skipper brave and sure. 5 passengers set sail that day for a 3-hour tour. Boom! The weather started getting rough. The tiny ship was tossed. If not for the courage of the fearless crew, the minnow would be lost. The minnow would be lost. The ship's aground on the shore of this uncharted desert isle, with Gilligan, the skipper too, the 1%er and his wife, the movie star, the man of science, Marianne, here on Gilligan's Island. So here's the story of our castaways. They're here for a long, long time. They'll have to... What? They're still there? Oh, this is stupid. Flint, you told me if I came in this week I could do Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner. That's it. I'm out of here. I'm not doing this. I'm not doing this anymore. I'm leaving, and I'm taking my chair with me. Hi, the disquieting news came this week that TLC is dropping 19 and counting, starring the infamous Duggar family. Not to worry though, because Josh Duggar is now free to join the cast of Naked and Afraid. Be afraid. Be very, very afraid.
Hi, I'm Paula Marinoni, and you're watching Fayetteville Public Access Television.
Oh, that must be super embarrassing.
Let me get that terrible driver I just got pulled over look.
This is perfect.
Whether you're a driver or a passenger, you're required by law to buckle up. Click it or ticket. Every trip, every time.
I describe myself as a mother, a writer, and a performer. I'm also a survivor of ovarian and uterine cancers. I even wrote a play about that. My symptoms were pain in my abdomen and periods that were heavier and longer than usual for me. If you have symptoms that last 2 weeks or longer, be brave. Go to the doctor.
Ovarian and uterine cancers are gynecologic cancers. Symptoms are not the same for everyone.
I got sick, and then I got better.
Oh, I don't know why I left, but I know that I was wrong, and it won't be long till I get on back home. Well, I got a letter in the mail. It said go to war, go to jail, and it won't be long till I get on back home. used to wear my faded jeans. Now I wear my army greens. And it won't be long till I get on back home. They slapped me down in a barber chair, spun me around, I had no hair. And it won't be long till I get on back home. I used to be a high school stud. Now I'm marching in the mud. And it won't be long till I get on back home. Well, I used to date a beauty queen, and now I love my M16. It won't be long till I get on back home. Well, mama, mama, don't you cry. Your little boy ain't gonna die. It won't be long till I get on back home. Hip high. I don't know why I left, but I know that I was wrong.
This is called Don't Fall in Love with a Hippo, It'll Break Your Dad's Car. Well, don't fall in love with a hippo, it'll break your dad's car. Now don't fall in love with a hippo, it'll break your dad's car. They're all Italian, they love romance, they'll have affairs, first chance. So don't fall in love with a hippo, they don't like to dance. Don't fall in love with a hippo, it'll break your heart. Don't fall in love with a hippo, it'll break your heart. They think they're cool, play the fool, to break the rules, they're just like mules. They've got weird skin, they make weird sounds, they have to stay wet all the dadgum time. So don't fall in love with a hippo unless you got some kind of altered kind of state of mind. Don't fall in love, don't fall in love, don't you fall in love with a hippo, it'll break your heart. They've got weird skin, they make weird sounds, they have to stay wet all the dadgum time. They think they're cool, to play the fool, they break the rules, they're just like mules. So don't fall in love with a hippo unless you got a great big Olympic size heated in the wintertime swimming pool. Don't fall in love, don't you fall in love, don't fall in love with a hippo, it'll break your heart.
I have loved and I have lost, and I have tried again, no matter the cost. If I ever love again, this time I'm gonna win. This heart of mine can't take much more. It's been broken too many times before. When it feels love like it should, this time it'll be for good. I'm not looking for promises of forever and always. I'm living for that one true love I know has come my way, and I can see it in your eyes. This time we can get it right, since I fell in love again. This time I'm gonna win. I'm not looking for promises of forever and always. I'm living for that one true love I know has come my way, and I can see it in your eyes. This time we can get it right, since I fell in love again. This time I'm gonna win. Since I fell in love again, this time I'm gonna win.
One of the most frequent questions that I get from viewers of my artwork is maybe a question of what tips I could give about how to take better photographs. And I think the one that I might give constantly would be to remember that photography is an abstract medium and to make the most of it. And we're here today to talk about one image in particular, which is titled Woman with Sword, and part of a series that was entitled Women in Violence. And in this particular image, which is a Polaroid transfer technique, an original photograph is taken on Polaroid film, and in essence the image from the Polaroid is transferred to a piece of watercolor paper under pressure. And you can see as you look at this image that there is a texture to it that you normally wouldn't find in a photograph, and that was part of the intent, using photography in part of its abstraction to give this image a flavor of having been chipped out of a wall in an archaeological dig. And in fact, in the original image, the way it was presented, it was plastered onto a backing material with wall plaster that was cracked and lent to the effect. The series itself was designed to try to illustrate a few points about the way that female sexuality and violence is typically joined together especially in advertising images. And there was an attempt to look at how an image of a male portraying violence toward a woman was typically looked at by men as inoffensive, while many women found it very uncomfortable. And that's quite a simplification, but part of the project that initiated this series was an attempt to try to derive images that might reverse those roles, put women in power, put a man in a situation where male sexuality and violence are combined, and to try to perhaps sensitize some men to the concept of how these images are used, and can be very disconcerting, perhaps. This is the second in the series, and it's called Woman with Sword, and it's in essence a remake of a very famous painting that shows Medusa's head after having been decapitated. In the original painting, of course, Medusa's head with the multitude of snakes is being held up, and we've alluded to parts of that in this photograph. The snake on the arm of the woman is a real snake. It was rented for the photograph and was very cooperative in wrapping itself around her arm. And there's another faint snake image on the right arm, a bracelet, a brass bracelet that harkens back to Egyptian motifs. The male head here, which is the rest of the body, of course, is out of the photograph. It's difficult to tell by looking at this photograph whether the man's head is severed or not. And I'm not even going to tell you whether it's severed or not. But actually, right below the photograph where we cut it, you'd see the rest of his body. And you don't know whether he's alive or dead, and which is typical of many of the images that associate female sexuality and violence in advertising. Is an ad for a necklace. Has the woman been strangled the way she's laying on the bed, or not? Most men would say, no, it's just a photograph. Don't, you know, it's nothing to be concerned about. But a lot of women might find that image disturbing. And this, although this is certainly not as graphic and as disturbing as some of the other images in the series of women and violence, nevertheless, it shows an image of a woman in power, a woman who is just looks like is either just has or is about to perform an act of violence on this man. The woman's face is cropped out of the photograph very purposely, not to protect her identity, more than to simply as a method of indicating that I didn't want that. I mean, I just didn't want a personality associated with this woman. It's all women, and it's timeless. And the timelessness of the image is accented as well by the texture that is seen in the photograph. And that's actually the watercolor paper texture that you're seeing in all of these areas around that almost looks fuzzy. If you were able to look closely at the original photograph, you would see that it's almost a hairy texture, and that's from the wet watercolor paper. It's a very interesting technique, I think. And from a photographic standpoint as well, it illustrates that you can produce photography without expensive equipment. You can produce photography on films that are considered amateurish, like Polaroid films sometimes. And you can produce good images by manipulating photographs, something that many purists would find abhorring. Thank you very much.
This particular painting, I believe, came out of the idea of tension. When it was choreographed, if you will, what was behind it was the feeling of pushing and pulling and stress and tension, but at the same time the need to hold on to one another, to touch one another, to feel our humanity, if you will. And the models did that. They they moved into that position. That's how they interpreted this need, this struggle. I believe I see it. What I'm doing is taking what I believe to be a universal situation, the situation that we're in as a world, as a human population, in that we are in many wars, or involved in many wars and in a lot of strife, nationally, internationally, on a local level, and on a personal level. But at the same time, as human beings, we have a need to reach out to one another and to make ourselves more human, or somehow create and recreate the idea of what it is to be human, using history, but also creating perhaps a new reality of what it is to be human, what it is to be important to one another, that we need one another. And through this need and through this touch, that we can learn to respect and truly respect one another. I want my art to be large because at this point in my life, what's important to me is dealing with, again, the human condition and realizing that by respecting that condition, that perhaps we can change basic elemental things about our reality, our society, our system, so that it is more equal. And as we do that, we can create a dynamic international policy that also recognizes all people as important and justified, and hopefully will help create a situation that will eliminate the need for war, imperialism, oppression, bad working conditions, inhuman working conditions, inhuman living conditions in our own country that need to be recognized, that we all feel and we all love, and we're all very fragile, and that we need to recognize this and create human policies in our country that recognize this, and hopefully help pull our people out of poverty and out of need and out of hunger, and create better institutions for all of us. And that's what I'm trying to find a way with my visual vocabulary to express these really deep feelings that I have, and that's what I try to work with consistently, is perfecting that vocabulary, or at least having that vocabulary truly integrated with what I believe is important to me. Thank you very much.
Oh, that must be super embarrassing.
Let me get that terrible driver I just got pulled over a look.
This is perfect.
Whether you're a driver or a passenger, you're required by law to buckle up. Click it or ticket. Every trip, every time.